Fish Life Podcast. A little bit of whiskey, Myers, while you got the whiskey in the cup, Chris. What you know about that? Listen to the opening line, would you? You know the opening line of this song?
I've heard it a few times.
I think they wrote it about me, and probably him too, to be honest with you, and probably a lot of us watching the show. Nailed it! Nailed it! Fade that on out, Big Chris. It's the Fish Life Podcast coming at you with tons of positivity and energy tonight, Blackman. Tons of positivity and energy.
All of it.
We've got John Soukup going to join us, going to break down Garmin Livescope fishing, Lowrance Active Target, just all the live sonar imaging fishing from the bass tank. They are kind of the foremost experts in the industry, I think, accepted by most when it comes to live sonar fishing, man.
Right.
This guy is the guy from the bass tank. He's one of the owners. He took it out on the tournament trail. First year of the National Professional Fishing League. He won 2 events. One of them used solely using live sonar fishing from day 1 to day 3, wire to wire, leader and winner at the very first event, I believe.
Winner.
The first NPFL event was one wire to wire using live sonar. We'll talk to him about that, ask him tons of questions about live sonar, about the National Professional Fishing League, the NPFL. Mm-hmm. And, man, we're going to get into lots of other stuff too because it's getting cold. It's cold and getting colder. Where's our agenda so I can make sure we let everybody know what's going on here? Yeah, I think I nailed it.
Yeah.
I'm better than I thought I was.
Yeah.
So that being said, Chris, it has gotten cold. The water temps are finally dropping into our typical wintertime temperatures, or getting close to them anyway. We're down in the lower part of the 50s on even our big lakes now. With this going on, we should drop down into some upper 40s in parts of those lakes, if not all of them. That's not a bad thing.
No, that's a good thing.
Not a bad thing at all, guys.
No
It's making the fish more grouped and making them more predictable. And even though, yes, it can be painful on your hands and all that, the bite's pretty darn good right now considering everything. And with Lake Fork especially being drawn down low, it's putting all those fish in very predictable areas because both the drawdown and the cooling water temps are drawing those fish down into these drop-off areas. And the number one drop-off area, a lot of times on Lake Fork in the wintertime, tends to be a creek channel. It's also a place for fish on the main lake to pull into those creek channels and stage to go into pre-spawn mode in January and February like they do. So creek channel, creek channel, creek channel, creek channel. Billy Ray's Redneck Science says drop in water temps, drop them like it's hot in that creek channel bin with that jig, and then watch your line jump.
That's right.
That's the Redneck Science of the week right there.
If you get a bite, slow down and pick an area apart.
Creek channels are going to be the deal on Lake Fork for the foreseeable future as of today. You need to learn creek channels. You need to understand creek channel bends and why the outside bend is more important than the inside bend. We'll do a little more Redneck Science and break down for those that may not know why the outside bend is so much more important than the inside bend, Chris. Before this was a lake, when it was just a creek channel, that water washes through that creek like this. Well, when it went around the turn in that creek, that water pushed up against that outside part of that bend, and it created that washout. We've all seen that on a creek when we've been deer hunting, if you've been out in the woods. Creates a little miniature, anywhere from 2 foot down to 6 or 8 foot, straight bluff wall, which is so unique for anything else that we know on Lake Fork. We don't have bluff walls on Lake Fork anywhere other than the creek channels, right?
Better ambush point.
So it's just a very unique piece of structure, and it creates that depth change. Fish need that vertical depth change because, like it's Texas. It's 37 yesterday, whatever it was. It's going to be 75 in a couple of days. Those fish like that vertical cover and structure in the wintertime to be able to move up and down as those temperatures change. So those creek channels and fishing those outside bends is going to be a key component to anybody's success that's coming to Lake Fork in the near future. Hey, as we get in here, guys, tonight, this is the Fish Life Podcast.
It is.
That makes it the lowest budget actually live. We got a phone charger and a phone in a daggum garage. That's what we do.
That's actually fact-checked.
Yeah, it's been fact-checked. Even Facebook approves of that.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, even Facebook can't ban that one.
Even the Zuck says that we are the lowest budget.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And we're always actually live. We don't even, because we don't want to fool with that fancy editing or none of that stuff. That makes us the L-ball, lowest budget actually live. Makes you guys the low ballers. We appreciate you joining us. As you do, be sure, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Give us a like in the like buttons.
Yeah.
Give us a like and a like.
Share this thing.
Drop a comment so we know who we're talking to, please. And yes, do share this thing. Sharing is the one way you can help us. We would sure greatly appreciate it if you would share it. John Soukup from the Bass Tank's coming on tonight.
We've got so many questions.
We've got a lot of questions. This is probably more pre-show work than we've ever done. We have a ton of questions. Do me a favor right now. John just started a YouTube channel. He's already got a 30-pound winter bag on there. So he's like, this dude is like, he may not be a guy that everybody knows in the world of bass fishing yet. Like some of the, just more fringe viewers that just kind of watch the Bassmaster or whatever. They don't know everybody in the industry. May not have heard of John Soukup. This cat right here is one you need to know.
He straight catches them.
He catches them. Dude is a freaking hammer. Went through his first year with the National Professional Fishing League. His lowest finish was 32nd. Out of 6 events, I believe it was 6 events. 32nd was his lowest finish, and he had 2 wins. One hell of a year considering who he was fishing against. These guys, a lot of those guys on the National Professional Fishing League are some of those guys that everybody doesn't know, but they're really, really good. There's a lot of those names on that list. And John was up there at the very top of those. So just an unbelievable year. We're going to talk to him. He's going to share a ton of knowledge. But go check out John's YouTube channel. It's called The Hookup with Soukup. I think it's Soukup. We're going to have to ask him how to pronounce his name. It's a little weird. Spelling's a little odd.
I think it's Soukup.
He's in Oklahoma, so there may be some, Native American influence. I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. It's a different name than I've ever seen for sure, but we'll have to ask him about that. But The Hookup with Soukup, and that is the YouTube channel. We will link that in the description once we're off the live stream. It won't be in there while we're live, but once we're done with live, it'll be in there. So if you're watching this afterwards, which most of our views come afterwards, be sure you go check out John's channel and subscribe to it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Looks like we might have a couple questions coming in. Which side of the drop-off do you set up on a creek channel bend? I set up on the inside bend and throw past the outside bend and drag my bait or reel my bait, present my bait from outside the outside bend and come to it where it can go down off that ledge. Yes, yes, yes.
If you do it the opposite way, you're going to spend a lot of time unhanging yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you will get hung up more if you fish it the other way, no doubt. Junior Figueroa, got to meet him at Fun and Son. We were just at Fun and Son. Speaking of that, I know it's not ICAST, but like if the Fun and Son Tackle Show had a Best in Show, can we give a Year Lake Fork guy Best in Show award to Fun and Son Tackle Show?
Can I ask a serious question?
Yeah.
Is ICAST like not what it used to be?
I mean, I don't think people care about it as much as they used to because you can see new baits on the internet just as easy as you can go to ICAST and see it.
I was just wondering.
You don't got to spend all that money, get media credentials.
It just doesn't seem to have the hype it used to.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. That's a whole other subject. We got to get John on the phone here in a minute because I told him the time we would call. But if we could give a Best in Show for the Fun and Son Tackle Show, look at how real the paint job on this thing is, guys.
That's going on with me.
That's a floating, multi-jointed swim bait from Smash Tech. And the paint job on this dude right here, I mean, y'all can see the detail on that. It is nasty. I'm going to roll this over some beds in the spring, and I may not even catch fish on it, but I bet they'll tell on themselves when this thing rolls around.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a floater.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I got it. This is my new bed fishing locator right here. I'm getting old. My eyes ain't what they used to be. If I can't see the fish anymore, we'll just make them roll up on a bluegill bait, then we'll flip at them, Chris. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, let's see. What else, Chris? Let's see if we can answer a couple more questions before we get old John on the phone. Saw an aerial video from Lake Fork. It's looking scary down there. Yeah, I need to get some drone footage for you guys. Maybe sometime this week I'll go fire out some drone footage for you guys this week.
Can I just say for the record, I love Lake Fork when it's 6 foot low.
It's really cool. It's cool looking.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And very educational too.
Yes. Yes. You can learn a lot when the lake's low like this.
Yeah.
That'll help you.
What works better for you at Lake Fork, 360 or Livescope? Humminbird 360 or live, which I'm using Active Target, but yeah, same deal, live sonar. What works better? Hard to say. I mean, one's not as good without the other. It's kind of like what works better, sonar or down imaging when you just had those two. Well, they work a lot better if you use both of them. So, what is the cost for a bass tank to do a Garmin install? Well, you know what? We can find that out.
I think we're...
I know a guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. Let's get John on the phone because I want to talk to him a long time tonight if he's able to do it. You guys let me know if y'all can hear John.
Hello?
Is this Sir Hookup?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hook up a lot. Hook up a lot.
Sir Hookup a lot. That is a. By the way, you couldn't have a better nickname for fishing than the Hookup, right? The Hookup was
Yeah.
Soukup. Now,
Yeah.
just so we can do this right tonight, exactly how do I pronounce your last name, brother?
Oh, Soukup. Like soak up water. So
Okay.
something up.
Okay, very good, very good. Awesome. Well, I'm here with my buddy Chris. He hosts these podcasts with me. You may or may not have seen some of them, but we got Chris Blackman in the house. Chris, say hello to the Hookup.
How are you, sir?
Good.
I got a couple questions we're going to kick it off with.
Cool.
All right, Biggie or Tupac?
Oh, man, that's too long ago.
That's too long.
ago. I do like Biggie. I like that, so I'll just go with that.
Okay.
Going with Biggie. My man's going Biggie.
All right, if you could bring back a hairstyle, what hairstyle you going to bring back?
I mean the mullet, and in addition, the vanilla ice, like the 3 shades.
Oh.
Side, above the ear.
That is a new one. We've done this for a couple years with different guests. I'll give you credit, John. That's a new one right there, bud. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. So, well, man, thank you so much for taking time, dude. First of all, congratulations on the new baby.
Oh yeah, thank you, man. That's we've been having kids for 3 decades. How about that? That's
This is nothing new to you. This old hat for you.
No, it's been 8 years. So
Wow.
We've got a 14-year-old all the way down to a 3-day-old at the moment. So
John, I got to ask. That question leads to another question. Was this deal planned, or was this a?
no, listen, man. She said she doesn't want no kids. But you come home smelling like fish. And what can I say? Can't resist.
Can't beat them off with a stick, can you?
No.
No doubt. That's the key. There you go, folks that are listening out there, young gentlemen in the world, or not so gentlemen in the world. If you want to have the women chasing you down and shaking you down for what you got, just go catch a bunch of fish and stink to high heaven. They'll be all over you. Yeah, that's right. Well, man, we're going to get right into it, dude. I know. So you are one of the owners at Bass Tank, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we want to break down. We want to talk to you about some Bass Tank stuff, some live sonar, and of course tournament fishing stuff tonight. But the Bass Tank I think, has the reputation, in my opinion, kind of being considered one of, if not the foremost expert in the live sonar game as far as the company goes.
Yeah, I hope so, man. We were on the forefront of it. I mean, I think I was literally like the 3rd person to have one on their boat to compete with it. So we've been around it from the very, incept, and that we built the company off of the technology. I mean, we weren't in the electronics business until it came out, and actually when I used it at the Forest Wood Cup in 2018, I mean, I looked to my business partner Scott, who's an engineer, and said, "Man, this thing's going to change everything. We need to get on board with this." And that was when we started, really pushing into the electronics game was because of that.
So was that the actual start of Bass Tank? The Bass
Tank had been created. We created it just as a hobby. I mean, I'm a flooring contractor, and my partner is an engineer, power plant. He did control systems at power plants. And so the Forest Wood Cup 2018, like I said, I broke down both days. Brand new boat, brand new electronics. And it came down to just it was installed incorrectly. And so he was super frustrated with the installation. And through that frustration, that was kind of like, hey, the light bulb went off, man. There's an opportunity here. And I think my exact quote to Scott was, if this is happening to me at this time, then it's happening to everybody everywhere. And
right.
We then went to Garmin and gave them a list of problems they were having with their install shops, and said, "What if we gave you an install shop that never had these problems?" And so they gave us an opportunity to start selling electronics, and that's how it started.
Well, speaking of that, man, talk to me about this, because to me this is one of the things that even if you fish a lot, I get asked this question all the time, and I think it's something that guys have learned over the last couple of years. Since Patrick Walters went on Lake Fork. When that really, to me, that was kind of the moment that the entire bass fishing world, for the most part, accepted live sonar and went, okay, this is part of our game too. And since then, so many people have gotten it. the installation and the power setup seems to be so crucial, man. It can make or break how your unit performs, and it even affects how your other unit performs. Can you talk to us about how we should properly set up live sonar and the importance of it?
Yeah, I mean, let's just take the importance of it. It can be as simple as, okay, I got some interference, or I got some voltage drop, down to, how about this, having a $70,000 boat and the force wood cup, your boat won't start.
Right.
Because of it. So that's how severe it gets is, and 90% of guys will attest to this when I say, you go to crank your motor on and all your units flicker and they power down.
Yep.
So there's a quick sign that you have some issues. So, and it's not just Livescope. Livescope, it's got a black box that pulls a certain amount of amperage that's greater than typical. When I say typical, let's say from the post, Livescope error. How about that? The last 3 or 4 years. But Humminbird's the 360 does the same thing. Active Target does the same thing with Lowrance. So it's the technology as a whole across the board, across all brands, is forcing more power draw. And when you have more power draw, it's pretty simple. If you think about the electrical world, I'm just a layman. Scott's the engineer, so I just think of it kind of like plumbing. You need to have a big enough pipe to run the oxygen that you need, like oxygen to the brain, water through the pipe. And so we go with a direct power supply straight from the battery. We don't go through your power startup harness for your boat and things of that nature that a lot of the factories do. So we have our own power harness that we run directly from the batteries straight to the units, straight to the black box of the Livescope, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Yeah. Now, do you see? So, another thing that I've heard and something that I feel like I've experienced is the image quality, and not if you've got them all wired into the same power source. If your live sonar and your console graphs with side and down imaging, all that are all wired through the same power source. I've experienced situations where my image, even if I make it through the day with enough juice to crank my boat, the quality of my image will suffer the later in the day I get. Even my sonar image on my console graph, all that, and especially my live sonar image, I'm not going to get as clear of an image. I'm not going to be able to interpret what I'm seeing nearly as well because the image quality goes down.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. I mean, the processors in those black boxes and then in the units that's interpreting that information for us, right? I mean, we see an actual fish now. It's not like a blob like it used to be, or just like a mark. It's got to have oxygen through the brain for it to think and to process it. And so when the voltage drop happens, it's like oxygen's not enough oxygen, so it can't think quick enough, and therefore, the images aren't what they need to be. They're slower than what they are, and you're missing out. So it's not like you have to take this thing up to the 16, 18 volt range that a lot of people are thinking. If you just keep it above 12 all day long, you're good. So, to keep it above 12, you definitely need a big enough battery. It doesn't have to be a lithium, but lithium's preferred if you're going to put in 10, 12-hour days, which that's a lot of us in the tournament world. We're putting those in, especially in practice.
No doubt. Well, that's good info. I mean, are you rigging your lives? And you may have already said this, and I'm trying to digest this and keep on track with my little planner that we actually, bro, you're important. You're like the most VIP guest we've ever had. I did more pre-gaming for your deal because I wanted to make sure I asked you all the questions I wanted to ask you. So you may have already answered this, but do you recommend rigging the live sonar to a separate battery, or are you rigging it to the same battery?
Okay, so if you're a tournament fisherman, I recommend it having its independent battery source.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, you can parallel it to your two batteries to your starting battery. I've got away with that for the last 2 years. It's been fun. So whether that's, you have one AGM as your starting battery or a lithium cranker, and then you have another separate battery that you run parallel together. And the reason why we're having to do that is a lot of us are running powerful charges. And so you have X amount of banks. So you have to basically convert two batteries into one battery, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
And but if you have a NOCO charger that's got like a 4-bank or whatever, you're not worried about an onboard charger system that's working up your alternator, then you can just have a separate independent lithium battery that's running your Livescope system.
Okay.
And then you're going to have lots of power. And it's going to be clean power.
Is that you think that's probably kind of like the simplest way for guys that are
100%.
just
100%.
weekend anglers that don't have all the knowledge and want to do some of their own maintenance, but they're not super knowledgeable. But that's probably the easiest way is just get a separate battery directly to their live sonar.
I think so. I think it's the simplest route.
Okay.
The only thing with that, when we start talking simple, then you get into kind of charging systems in your boat, and when you get a lithium, when you get a lithium battery, you have to make sure that you got a charger that can charge that lithium battery. A no cocaine, you just have to set it to its lithium, versus charging lead or versus charging AGM. You need to set it to the lithium settings.
Okay. Man, that's great info, dude. Appreciate that so much. Now, like we said earlier, and you mentioned it, you've been using, you're one of the first guys to start using the live sonar for bass fishing, especially. You referenced 2018. Talk to me about when you first got that thing and how long of a learning curve it was for you to actually be able to prac app it into bass fishing uses.
I mean, I caught fish with it right away, but the skill set has gotten way better. You know what I mean? Like, I was trying, like, in the cup to use it, and I was doing decently with it, but at that time, there was just a few of us doing it. We were just starting to try to figure out what all, it was capable of. So the learning curve at first probably was longer in the bass world, was probably more, for me, was probably longer into the 8-month, maybe even to a year time frame for when we could really actually open up and see what it can do. Now, guys, can piggyback off other people's knowledge, and that learning curve can go from putting it on your boat in 1 week. You can probably do what it took me 6 months, 8 months to figure out how to do originally. Right.
So that's one thing I want to talk to you about. It's when somebody goes out there and buys it, just your weekend dude, right? Like, he's fishing the local trails, got a bass club, fishing media, he fishes some bass champ events, just a local guy, right? When he picks up a live sonar and puts it on his boat for the first time, I know for me, I experience this because I'm a very old school fisherman. I grew up in Southeast Texas where the water's flat and full of grass. Like, we didn't depend on electronics a lot when I was a kid growing up. And I'm 38. I'm old enough. We didn't have a lot of electronics when I was growing up. So for me, being a guy that tends to fish off feel and knowledge and just a traditional, more of a shallow water guy, there was a huge learning curve for me and a skill set for me. Like you said, a skill set. That's the deal. It takes skill to execute fishing on these live sonars. So when a weekend guy gets it, I feel like there is some things they need to be prepared. They're going to have to learn. They're going to have to learn how to control where that thing's pointing and understand exactly where it's pointing and the angle of it, keeping the bait on the screen, how to see fish and keep the fish on the screen, because bass don't sit still most of the year. Can you talk to me about some of the shortcomings that a new guy to this can expect? Like, what can he expect to try to work at and learn at, and what's going to be challenges for somebody new to live sonar?
Yeah, so I'm going to skip through number one, which we've already talked about a lot in depth, is making sure that it's rigged right. That's
correct.
Very important.
Correct.
It's, making sure that, because otherwise you're just going to be frustrated. For instance, there's a lot of guys that get out there and they're like, the first thing they do, they call us, they're like, I can't see my jigs. Like, because they got it oriented the wrong way. They got the transducer pointed behind the boat,
Right.
So there's, learning just the functionality of how it needs to be set up is very important before you even try. So then let's say you get through that step. There's a couple things. Boat orientation, boat control, boat orientation is extremely, extremely important. And what I mean by orientation is being able to scan with your foot. Let's say it's on your trolling motor. Be able to scan and understand what 30 foot to at 10 o'clock means. That fish is, and where that fish is at in conjunction to where the boat position is at. Is that fish moving towards you? Is it moving away? That is something that it takes quite a while to do, and that's something that I honestly recommend people starting out that really want to learn it, that they go crappie fishing instead of bass fishing.
Well, the crappie will sit still more. I will tell you one thing. It's funny you say about orientation. I for sure several times in the beginning, like a bass was moving left to right on my screen, and I threw to the right outside of my cone. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at the screen, I'm like, well, he's swimming to the right, so I threw to the right. I'm like, wait a minute, it's still pointing over here. It's like,
Yeah, so we don't let people say when they get in the boat for training. I don't let them say left and right. If I'm on the trolling motor controlling the trolling motor, they look at the screen and they see that the fish is left or your lure is left. That means it's closer. That doesn't mean it's left.
Correct.
You know, if it's beyond, then it's further. So we say in terms of closer or further. And then I know left or right based off of foot control and the foot pedal. I do things called sweeping. I'll sweep left, sweep right, and I'll get that hard return. And once I get that hard return, I'll do little feather sweeps, and I'll make sure that I'm staying in that hard return because as it looks out farther, it's at 20 degrees, and as it shoots out further and further and further, you're seeing a wider turn area, surface area, if you will, from left to right. So it can be up to 30 foot wide, 70 feet. So you might be able to pick it up in the peripherals, if you will. Like if you look right now with your eye and you look and focus on something 30 foot away from you, you're looking right at it, you see all that other stuff in the peripherals. Where that transducer's picking up the same thing. It's that peripheral vision. So you do what I call feather sweeping left, right, real quickly, and wait until you get that hardest return, and I maintain that hardest return. And if I'm maintaining that hardest return, I may find out that I'm having to continue to sweep the left. Well, that tells me that fish is moving to the left. Okay. And so that's how I know left versus right, where that fish is moving. And as time goes on, you begin to identify fish size. Yeah. I personally love to leave my grids up. I've always lived my grids up. A lot of guys don't like the grids. I think grids help you identify fish size a lot easier. And as you get further along and as you learn fish behavior, and once you understand what a bass looks like, you can also understand the size of a fish based off of just first glance and how its return is.
No doubt.
If it looks like the cartoon whale, when it's got a separation between the round head and then it's got this wavy thing behind it, which is its tail kicking.
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I tell people is now that I've kind of had some time with mine, I've had mine since very early March, and really going into Lake Fork in March for the first couple months, I didn't use it much because we quickly got into sight fishing season and all that. You understand that? But as I've had some time to use it, I've probably used it adamantly for 6 or 8 months now. And I've got it to where you can actually, if you've got your deal working right and that fish gets relatively close to your boat and it's a somewhat big fish, you can see the top fin, the tail fin. Like you can see everything on that fish when he gets close to your boat if you've got it dialed in right.
Yeah, and the more experience that you have, you'll be able to see its eyes, you'll be able to see its gills flare.
Oh, my goodness.
Probably the second thing that I tell everybody that they need to understand is do not set your live scope on auto. Don't do it. You'll ruin it. You won't understand the concept of a constant. So you'll have problems with judging distance and fish size and things like that. So I usually try to set my depth about 2 to 5 feet deeper than what I'm wanting to fish.
Okay.
So if I'm in 20 foot of water, I may set it at 25 or 23.
Okay.
Or if I'm over open water and all the fish are in 20 foot at the bottom aren't biting, but the ones that are in 10 foot are biting, I may set it at 15 foot and ignore everything that's below that.
So you do adjust your depth ranges. So I've heard some guys say, and I've done this in the past with down imaging and sonar, where I will run a certain depth. Like even if I'm scanning in 10 foot of water, I'll run my screen at 30 foot because when I'm graphing out deep, I see an arc in 30 foot. It's a certain size. I know what size bass that is. And that way, even if I see it in 10 foot of water, I know what size bass it is. You're saying you do actually adjust the depth on your screen in and out versus keeping it one constant depth.
I do. I adjust that, but I do it quite often, but you don't have to do it as often as I do. The main thing that you'll probably learn the most is like keeping your distance more constant. The further out you're trying to see, the less you're going to understand what you're seeing at first.
Okay.
It's just like sighting in a gun. You don't go to the range and you start shooting at 100 yards. So the closer you're looking in, the more detail and you're going to understand about the fish behavior.
Correct.
I would say like 45 to 70 foot is probably a good range to start with.
I started at 60. I couldn't do much past 60. And still to this day, unless I have to, I like to keep it at 60 when I can get away with it. Plenty of times, most of the time I have to go further than that these days. But I started at 60 and I didn't want to get over that because I didn't feel like I could see anything very good.
Yeah, so once you get over that 70 foot range, you get in the 90s and the 110s, 120s. You're not seeing the same return. It does look different, and you're looking more for movement and flashes than you are actual the identifying features of the fish, being like we talked about the fins and the tails and the things like that. So even when I am ranged out at a far distance, unless the fish are really schooling or running real hard, I will, as I come in on that fish, range in on it. Depending on how aggressive they are. If they're really aggressive, you can make all sorts of mistakes. You can throw and miss the fish by 15 foot and make a loud splash, and they're going to come and smash it. But we're talking about that getting really good is when you can pick off fish that they're not ready to, they don't want to bite. They're really inactive. And that's that's probably the highest level of what you're able to do with this technology.
So many similarities to bed fishing in a way. I see these similarities when you say something like that. Same thing with bed fishing. It's when you can catch the fish that other guys can't catch, and when you can see the fish that other guys can't see, that's when you start becoming better at bed fishing. There's no real special trick to, well, if I throw this bait or whatever have you, like that doesn't really exist. But if I can see them further away or I can see them deeper on a bed, now I can catch some fish that other guys can't catch. It's very similar with live sonar. If you can get good and accurate enough with your mechanics and with your understanding of the system where you can see those fish further away, you can get to some fish that other guys are going to have to get too close to, and they're going to spook. Do you find that to be true?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I could take that analogy and go and run with it a mile. Like it's so true. But the other thing about spooking, I'm gonna throw out there is the more you learn and watch big fish behavior versus just your average fish behavior. Now, Lake Fork, we're talking about different world of class of fish than just the average,
A different class of pressure too. Different class of pressure than most places too. Yeah.
So a big fish, let's say I'm going to say 5 pounds or less. Maybe I should go up to 6. I don't know on Fork, but let's just say 5 pounds or less. Those fish, when they spook, they're actually going to spook. Like they'll move, and the 2 and 3 pounders for sure. And that has a lot to do with the size of they are still a prey to some fish that are out there. They can still get ate by something. Right. That's out there in the. But once they hit that class, and then once they get into that 8, 9, 10 pound class and plus, those fish are aware of you but don't spook. Which the difference is you're going to be able to chase them for an hour and make an hour's worth of cast at them, and they just won't bite. And so learning how to approach a big fish and how to make sure that your first cast is the right cast and that he doesn't know that you're there and you got the right distance between him and you is the difference between converting, 5 out of 10 fish or 1 out of 100 fish. You may go out and see, everybody may go out and see 100 fish in a day, but that guy that can, with orientation, boat control, quiet, speed, accuracy, reading the fish and knowing which lure to throw it at that fish the first time, that's the guy that's going to be able to put a whole lot of weight in the boat. That is
that's why I need to come hang out with you, because I'm the 1 in the 100 guy. I can find them all. I just can't catch very many. But it's very similar to sight fishing in so many. And everything you're saying there, it always seems like a lot of the aspects of it remind me of sight fishing. And I love sight fishing so much. It's what really intrigues me about this. It turns it into where, if it's a day where I can get fish to I can find them on the screen, I can see them on the screen and somewhat keep them on there. Well, now I get to sight fish year round on those days,
And the thing that's overlooked the most out of the whole conversation about Livescope, and the thing that has done the most for me, is within maybe 5 minutes, but 30 seconds sometimes, when I'm on the water and I put that trolling motor down, I'm able to interpret the environment of what's going on. Yes. And then I can tune into the fish behavior and all my knowledge that I have on just how fish behave on that time of year under these conditions. Mm-hmm. And so it's about patterning the behavior of the fish, and you're able to do it so much faster. When you compare it to bed fishing, yes, the best bed fishermen, yes, they can see fish you can't see. They can catch fish that you can't catch. They can all that and above. But the one thing that they do greater than everybody else that no one talks about is how to pattern where the biggest fish are spawning at and identify it really quickly. No doubt. And then now they got 24 spots, and they don't even have to go look because they got confidence. They're going to go look terminate if they want to, or especially if there's other boats around, they don't have to go look. Well, everybody else has to go practice. Well, guess what? Then they find it, and then they catch the fish, or they spook the fish, or they make the fish aware that something's trying to attack it, and they just don't have the same odds that guy that knows where 24 other fish are at.
No doubt. No doubt, man. I hope that the folks that are listening to this, I mean, I've listened to and watched some stuff on Livescope fishing, but there's been some stuff that you've let go of here in the last 15 minutes or so. Some little detail stuff that if y'all are watching this right now, guys, once we're done with the live, you need to go back to about the 10-minute mark and start over and listen to 15 or 20 minutes, because there's some little details in here that, John, you're letting the juice go tonight, dude. Like, there's some stuff you're talking about that don't get talked about. And
This is what we do, man.
Yeah.
Like, a long time ago, I had to make the decision: am I going to try to hide the knowledge and win money fishing, or am I trying to build a business and build customer rapport? So that's what we do at the Bass Tank. We that's what we do, is try to help people catch more fish. Which is why we say catching, not fishing. It's what it's about.
Yeah, man. I could not feel that and agree with that and be on the same page with you anymore. Same deal as a guide. I made a decision a long time ago that the way I was building my business wasn't going to be about a reputation of being the best fisherman, or, oh, look at all these big fish I caught. Yeah, we're going to do our share of that, but we're going to build our reputation because we're going to help people without them even asking us to. We're just going to help people as much as we can, and it's going to come back to us in return. And it's worked out fine for me, worked out really, really good for me, and it's working out really, really good for y'all. And I really appreciate what you're doing tonight, bud, talking to us about all this, because this is valuable stuff. It's valuable to me. One thing you were just referencing is being able to pattern fish quickly. That's something I want to touch on, because you don't have to see the fish on the screen and see your bait on the screen for live sonar to be an effective tool. I would say that where live sonar helps me the most, especially being a guide, and you'll understand this, when you're guiding people and trying to have them catch fish, it's almost impossible for me to be running the trolling motor and the live sonar and be like, hey, throw right there, Mr. Customer who's casted a bait caster 5 times. He's not going to hit that bait on the screen most of the time. Like, it's just, he's not going to understand what I'm telling him to do when I'm trying to get him to present baits to fish that I'm looking at on the screen. But what it does do is so many different things throughout the year. Bluegill spawn. We'll go around the bluegill beds, and I'll see them on 360, and then I'll use live sonar to see which stumps outside the bluegill beds there's a bass on. And just patterning the fish and what depth they're holding in. Like, okay, well, they're from 5 to 8 right now, so let's stay over here in this 5 to 8 foot range. And I don't have to be looking at them on my screen, but just the amount of fish that you can see and see their behavior and get more information about those fish, it's going to dial your patterns in on a day-to-day basis, even if you're not looking at them on the screen when you're catching them.
Oh, 100%. So there's 3 main factors that you use Livescope for. And everybody sees the videos and everybody talks about the hardest one of all, which is identifying and chasing. And when you use the word chasing, literal,
Right.
Chasing down an individual fish, putting the lure on his nose, and having that individual fish bite. That absolutely does happen at the highest level of guys. And this time of year, it happens quite often. Now, when we get into the springtime, it dwindles down a lot. It goes away. That's why you see a lot of those guys that catch them in the wintertime aren't catching them year-round, because it's so much more difficult. Now, it's not impossible. But the point is that's only a small factor of what Livescope can do. The second thing that it does is it can help you when let's say you're on a point, and there's a drop-off out there, and there's a stump out there, there's some rocks that you've caught fish always on it, you're way offshore, you're just learning how to fish offshore, you don't really know how to triangulate yet. You're still dropping buoys and trying to learn how to stay near a buoy. Well, Livescope can help you with boat positioning. It can help you to identify, oh, I'm too close, there's the drop-off right there. I thought it was... my mind, I'm supposed to be sitting right here, but I can see right there on Livescope that the drop-off's actually over to my right. So it can help you with boat positioning on whether you're positioning on cover, structure, bait, fish, whatever. But the third thing, and probably the most important of all, is what we were just talking about. It's interpreting the environmental factors that are going on. And I'm going to use the word hour by hour, not day by day, because the more you look at your electronics, the more you learn. Fish behavior changes hour by hour. It doesn't necessarily mean they change location, but just like we get hungry at one time, and then we're grouchy at one time, and then we're in a good mood at one time,
Yeah.
all in the same day, and then it cycles through the whole day, the fish are too. And we're able to identify and pick that up a lot quicker, and then make sure that we're making our best decisions throughout the day to keep our lure and the presentations, in the optimal position to actually catch fish.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. John, I don't know if I said, dude, you're killing this, man. This is you are living up to what I expected from you and then some, man. This is such good information, dude. So, next question: where is the future of live sonar in professional bass fishing and tournament bass fishing in general? Where are we headed in the future with this technology? A lot of chatter, lot of chatter out there about should we limit it? Is it going to get banned, or do you have to hook them in the mouth now? Like, where are we going with the future of live sonar and tournament fishing?
Okay. So I think at some point, 5-10 years down the road, I don't know how far it's going to take, there will be at the highest level, there'll probably be a limit of some kind after the technology grows and gets better and better and better. So just because, I mean, at some point it's going to be maybe too good. I don't think we're there yet. Okay, I don't think we're there yet at all, because honestly, there's times when if guys are just buying it and they try for the next 3 years, you try every day, you're going to be some times where you're just stuck on the wrong fish and you spend the whole day fishing a fish that you should never even mess with. Well, some guy down the bank's just whacking them.
Right.
You know? So,
well, and there's still the skill set, right? Like, there's still a definite skill that is required. There are guys that are much better at executing on that skill with that live sonar and using it better. It's just showing them fish. It's not catching them.
Yeah. You'd be really amazed about how difficult it is to actually snag a fish. You know, people talk about, like, hooking them in the mouth and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So very rarely, and most of the time, it's like on a spoon or on an A-rig.
Or jerkbait. Sometimes, but with a jerkbait, dude, we foul hook them when we ain't looking at them on Livescope. They just swipe at a jerkbait. Yeah.
Same thing with a spoon, same thing with the A-rig. That fish came over, and what I call they licked it. You know, they came over to sniff it. They came over to lick it. They were curious. A lot of times it's big ones too. Most of the time it is a big one that does that.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, something's not quite, they don't have that same aggressiveness that a little 1 pounder does. So they're coming over and looking at it, and they just barely get it on the top of their head or something.
Man, I can't tell you how many times I've had fish with how much they follow an A-rig. I can't tell you how many times I've had fish make a run at the A-rig, like what I call flash at it, and they just, you see them on live sonar now. I see how many, and I never feel anything. They never bump it. They just go right up to it and turn away. Well, when a fish does that and makes the mistake of getting inside the A-rig with jig hooks, he's going to get hooked. Sometimes.
Sometimes he doesn't. That's even more frustrating.
Yeah, so he doesn't. It's more frustrating. You're right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think down the road there'll probably be a serious conversation about it. I don't think we're anywhere near where people are. I think that most of the guys that have a really, really negative opinion about it, I don't think they own it. I don't think they've used it. I don't think they've even probably can't afford it, and that's probably a lot of the complaints, so nothing against them or anything like that, or nothing against people that feel that way. They can, feel that way. I just don't think the more you actually use it, it's not the only tool. I mean, you still have to have all the other tools in the box.
Well, and I don't think, us as human beings, we have whatever's happening right now is the biggest deal. You know what I mean? Like, this is the biggest deal that's ever happened. And we have a tendency to exaggerate that way. And maybe everybody doesn't remember this, but when GPS mapping came out, there was some of this talk. When side imaging came out, there was a lot of this talk. Like, all these things that have come out, there's been these same discussions as there is now with live sonar. So part of that is the fact that this is bass fishing. And I think that the demographic of bass fishing is broadening and changing more now than ever. But the core base of bass fishing tends to be old school guys. It tends to be more rural oriented, more country oriented guys. And they like traditional values. And that's a beautiful, great thing. It's one of the things that makes the sport so special, because you got a bunch of dudes that have great traditional values and beliefs and hard work and all that good stuff. But it also tends to make those guys a little less accepting of change.
Oh, yeah, and I understand that. I do understand that. But I will say one of the things that about Livescope that is great is, and it was great with the A-rig, to be honest with you, is it allowed us to target fish that we just were never really targeting.
Them suspended out in the middle of nowhere. No man's land fish.
It turned us all into KVDs. What happened? Like, he has this live scope ability on his own, right? He was catching fish on a crankbait, And mentally he knew everything that was going on. It wasn't luck that he did it over and over.
Right.
So those guys do amaze me with their ability. But what it does is after you catch a fish, I don't care if you see it on Livescope. I'm talking about actually catching it and putting it in the boat, and you do it again, and then you figure it out. What it teaches you and the growth it teaches you as an angler, that's what I'm actually in love with on it is exponential growth of the understanding of the bass behavior. And then these things that we thought were true that really aren't true. And there's things that we thought were true that are true. They work, but it's not the truth of why the fish are actually doing it. And I just love to learn why the fish. When I figure out why the fish are doing what they're doing, that's when I get really dangerous on the water, and I know it at that point. And so,
absolutely,
this tool helps me do that.
Yeah, when we can start calling our shots, like when we understand everything, we're getting to a time of year on Lake Fork where there's a pattern that's been a good pattern on Lake Fork since almost the beginning of time, and low water and cold water makes this pattern the best it can be, and that's fishing creek channel bends and the stumps and root systems on those creek channel bends with a jig. And right now, there are certain creek bends on Lake Fork that I can go to, and I've been doing this with customers lately where I'm like, throw it that stump.
Yeah.
And they throw over there, and I know that the best stump on this creek bend's right there. For whatever reason, harder bottom, whatever it is, that's where they tend to set up is on that stump because I fished that stump for years. And you go there and you tell people, throw it that stump, and then they get a bite or sometimes 3 or 4 bites off one stump, and they're like, how did you know that? I'm like, well, there's this endless field of stumps. You told me that one's the one. Yeah, when you can start understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it, like I understand those fish are going to the deepest part of that creek bend because the water's been dropping and it's getting colder and colder. That's putting more fish in the deepest part of those creek bends every day. So now I know they're going to that stump right there. It makes you dangerous. You're right. It makes you very dangerous. I'm going to scroll through a couple questions because we are live, John, and I'm going to see if we got any viewer questions for you. One that was addressed to me, and I'll just let you go ahead and take it because I've seen what everybody else has seen, just the pictures online. But have you seen the new Lowrance Ghost 360 sonar, like the Humminbird 360, just from Lowrance? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. I've seen the videos, and I've talked to my partner who's an engineer. We understand a little bit about the setup on it and everything like that. But that came out last week when I was taking care of my wife as we were having our baby. So I have not been able to get out and play with it at all.
This is a question that I don't really understand too well, but you may understand it better than I do because you have so much more technical understanding of the system than I do. What is typical interference to look for? ? Mixing unit brands? ? You understand what he's asking there?
I mean, unit brands can interfere with each other in certain ways, but for the most part, your interference is going to come from your wiring and your power source, and how if you've got you can have magnetic fields and stuff created from the back of the back of your speakers. There's just all sorts of things that can create interference. But for the most part, if you're like in our power harness, the Bass Inc. power harness, we have 8-gauge marine duplex wire. It's ran straight from the source. Bad connections can cause interference and things like that. But if you're doing it this way, you won't have interference.
Gotcha.
Magnetic fields are a lot of interference problems.
Okay.
And they're created in different ways. They can be created in the head of a trolling motor. They can be created. There's a lot of different ways you get interference.
This is a good installation question, kind of along the same lines. If running Livescope and 360 on a 45-inch Ultrex, what's the minimum distance to put Livescope transducer above top of motor, and how high does 360 need to be above that? So how far do I need to keep the live sonar transducer from the trolling motor head, and how far do I need to keep the 360 transducer from the live sonar transducer?
Yeah. So you're going to have a black spot. You got to choose which one's going to have a black spot, dark spot. They're not going to. So most guys choose to have the dark spot in their 360 and not in their Livescope. So they go ahead and drop their transducer below their 360.
Correct.
Now 7 inches above the head is what standard Livescope is needed. Okay, but there's 2 ways to get around that. Okay. Because most of the time with a 45-inch shaft, any kind of waves, you need that 360 head to be lower than what that allows. Okay, they can be fairly close to each other as far as that goes.
Okay.
As far as the 360 from the Livescope head. So most of the time, you have to lower the Livescope closer to the head. Now, there is an 8-degree kick out on the Livescope bracket that is designed to go around the motor head. The Garmin trolling motor head is a lot thinner than the Ultrex, so you can't get as close as you can if you had a Garmin Force trolling motor. So you can play with your distance and you can get close, maybe within 3 to 4 inches, but you may start seeing in your Livescope screen a line, a black spot, if you will, and that black spot is caused by the transducer hitting the head of the trolling motor. So the transducer at that point needs to come up higher. Now, with that being said, another way the guys are doing it is they're actually mounting it on the head of the trolling motor on the side of the trolling motor. There's one other way.
I've seen some of those.
That's not necessarily recommended, like on Lake Fork, for instance, where you got stumps.
You're probably gonna break your
everywhere.
transducer. Like I'm just
probably going to. So
yeah.
It's every single time. To be honest with you, that situation becomes like almost a custom install almost every single time. Like
okay.
playing with what you're at. But like I said, the 7 inches, the mark you start with, it's impossible. So you kind of have to lower that down 3 to 4 inches above the head.
Okay. Good info. I'm gonna do one more viewer question because I feel like this is a really good functionality question as far as fishing goes that we all need to know the answer to. So, when you pull up on a spot, how do you know what to start scanning with? Do you still graph with down inside, then position your boat and start using Livescope, or do you just pull up on a spot, drop the scope in, and get to going?
So, listen, man, I hate to answer questions with questions, but it is the facts of life that we're living right now with the fishing world. Like, it depends on a lot of situations, okay? If it's, what is the, is it spring? Is it pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn? Is it summertime? Are they schooled up, ganged up? Have they been beat on? Is it late summer? Is it fall transition? Is it winter? These things matter a lot. And I'll give you some examples. If I feel like when I'm pre-practicing or if I'm practicing, I am going to use my down inside imaging more than anything.
Okay.
And once I've determined what I feel like I found fish doing, if I'm in a season where that works, right? If they're bedding, that doesn't even apply. So once I've done that, then tournament day, I'm probably not going to motor over those fish because the pressure that's out there nowadays, these fish understand the sound of motors. And so for the most part, I'm gonna start back, drop my trolling motor, and I'm gonna work up from maybe 100 feet away with my Livescope at that point. And I'm gonna look. Now, if I don't see the fish, I may fish a couple pieces of cover that are in that area to see if they're on the bottom and I can't see them. But if not, then I'm gonna pick up and then I'll idle around and try to relocate them. But if I'm looking at suspended fish, like in the wintertime, and the fish, I'm on a good day when the fish are getting really high in the water column and feeding up high, you get that motor within 90 fish of those fish, and they're going to go down. And when they go down, they're harder to catch. So if I know where schools of bait live, I'm not going to take my big engine over those schools of bait. I'm going to stay back and try to troll up to them. Now, that's in a situation where I know where they're kind of already at. So for right now, most lakes I go to, I kind of have an understanding where the bait ball's up in the wintertime, how they're behaving. And so I'll approach those with the trolling motor. But then if I can't find them, then I get on the big motor. But in reverse, in the summertime, I'm going to mostly be on my big motor, idling and graphing and finding things before I stop and put the trolling motor down.
Sounds like a general summary. I mean, and there's obviously, like you said, there's so many variables to that.
Right.
So none of it is exact at all times. There's no absolutes in fishing, I love to say. There is none. But it sounds like in general, if you know where they're going to be located, you're more apt to go straight Livescope. But if you're trying to locate them in general, you're more apt to use more side imaging.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I'll clarify a little bit of this with a statement. Nowadays, I would say probably in 2009 or, when side imaging first came out, around that time period, we still had a lot of interpretation. And before that, we did definitely have a lot of interpretation when we were shooting 2D, like, okay, what's that lip mean? And what's this mean? And so we kind of had to feel ourselves out whether what we thought we were seeing was what we were seeing. And so to make yourself a better angler now with your electronics, I make this statement very clearly. If you don't see what you think you're seeing, then quit trying to make it something that it's not. Now, there are guys that can see things that you can't see. 100%, there are. But the electronics are so good nowadays that if you don't see it, keep on moving.
Yeah.
If you don't see a huge school of fish and it's just not obvious to you that it's a big school of fish, then it's not. Then just keep moving until you see that. And see, I think a lot of guys, they get on their electronics and they start searching and they don't see something for an hour or two, and they expected that they just drove over everything. They're not good enough with their electronics to have confidence that they haven't seen what they haven't seen. So where a guy that's confident, he'll just keep going for hours and hours and hours until he sees what he needs to see.
That's something I've fought over the years being a fishing guide is I would have to have the conversation with customers and be like, listen, guys, we're not going to settle. We're not going to settle for those 3 or 4 fish. Like, I know what I'm looking at on this screen. We're not going to stop for 4 fish on that spot when if we keep driving, we might find 35 on a spot. Like, we're going to keep going. Like, that's something I had to teach myself and learn over the years was to not settle for less than what exists out there. Keep looking for that big school. Keep looking for that mother load. So,
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, let's transition topics because I want to get into this. We've been going for a long time. Thank you for your time, by the way. I know we're keeping you a long time tonight.
We're talking fishing, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always tell guys. Like I just came back from a tackle show at Fun and Son over there in Fort Worth, and a bunch of big names were there. And I told people, made a little content that's going to come out this week from there. I told people, I said, listen, go talk to them. They're just dudes that like to fish. They'll talk it with you all day. Like, it's not a problem. But let's transition. Let's talk a little NPFL and tournament fishing, dude, because you had one of the – I'm not the best fishing historian, but you might have had the best year I've ever seen anybody have and not win Angler of the Year. Like you last year on the National Professional Fishing League, my man – the hookup with Soukup won 2 events. 2 out of the first 3 events you won. You never finished below 32nd, I believe was your worst finish was 32nd out of a 100-boat field, guys. Out of a 100-boat field, never finished worse than 32nd. Had, I know, an 11th and a 15th, 2 first, a 32nd, and maybe a 31st or something like that. Is that about right?
Sounds right. Yeah, sounds right.
Any other trail, especially on that high of a level that I've ever seen, that's Angler of the Year hands down, dude. Like, that's essentially what Seth Fighter did, except you threw in 2 wins that he didn't have. How in the hell did you fish that good and finish that high and not win Angler of the Year?
Well, man, there was a group of 10 guys that were fishing, they were fishing great. And
right.
And the points were really tight. So
they were.
Going into the last event, I kind of swung for the fence on Grand. And I didn't fish well. I didn't follow any of my instincts. And I ended up the worst finish I'd have all year long, which is, like you said, was like 32nd.
Yeah.
I did get frustrated, and I went back to Grand and fished the Open like a couple weeks later and got 4. That's not your Open. And I fished better. I didn't practice. I fished off my instincts instead of going up and trying to fish spots,
Yeah, and to do that in the Open, that's, you could make the argument. I mean, that's obviously a bigger field. You could make the argument that's an even more competitive field. You've got Elite Series guys dropping down fishing the Opens and stuff. Like, to finish 4th in an Open is no joke, dude.
Yeah, no, it was 100%. I'm in a very blessed year, man. I don't know what to say. I mean, top it off with a new kid. Like, it was an extremely good year. I get a lot of support from the guys at the Bass Tank, letting me have my freedom to go fish. My wife, I've got 2 or 3 other businesses that I run and operate, and I got people that take care of that for me. Of course, it gets chaotic when I get home, playing catch up. But the only thing that I can say about this year is I never had the stress. I'm 39. I've had opportunity to fish at professional levels in the past, and I've chose to not chase it because I had responsibilities at home to take care of.
Correct.
And so I did that, and now I've had the opportunity in life now to fish professionally and not that it's not important, but I don't have the stress of having to catch a check to pay my bills. And
yeah, boy, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Matt Pangrack and I are really close. One time, he was frustrated. He was on the phone, and he called me up, and he was talking about an event that he kind of fell out of the top, and he had a good finish, but he he's just kind of a stress ball. And I told him, I said, Matt, one thing that helps you catch more fish? He's like, what's that? And I was like, not having to catch fish. It's like, and it's the truth. So I know we all can't be that way, and I can't either. But it's a mental thing is what I'm getting at. If
right.
you can have the peace and the focus to just put that all behind you and just focus and enjoy staying in love with finding and figuring out fish. Sometimes I could care less to actually catch a fish. My excitement is actually figuring them out. And so that's what tournament practice is all about. I mean, it's eliminating. Boom, you figure something out, and then you stop immediately and go do something else. And I enjoy that. I don't think a lot of guys enjoy that. And I feel like if I can take anything and just coach myself for next year and down the road and give that same coaching to other people is enjoying finding and locating fish and not putting the pressure that you're in a tournament, not worrying about the guy's name that's next to you or what his sponsor is or any of that. Just going and enjoying catching fish. That's really what I attribute the success this year to.
Going back to the Angler of the Year topic real quick, just one thing. This is, granted, I'm just a dang one of many fishing guides at Lake Fork. I'm nobody in the grand scheme of things out here. But a thought that I've always had in my head, just from a fan's perspective of tournament fishing, is that wins should be worth more than what they are. Because the way the point systems work right now, a win is only worth one more point than second. Mm-hmm. So to explain to those that may not know, basically the way it works is if you've got 100 boats in the field, then 100th place is worth 1 point, and first place is worth 100 points. Second place worth 99, third place worth 98, so forth and so on. I've always felt like when you get a win, you ought to get a bonus. Like maybe it's a 10-point bonus, a 50. Probably to me, it should be like it's so hard to win those things. It should be like a 50-point bonus or something like crazy. Like
Billy, it was a $50,000 bonus. So
that's you do get the cash. They do pay out like that. Like the cash pays out like it's a bonus. But for the Angler of the Year standings, it always felt to me like those wins are so hard to get. They ought to be worth more.
Talk to someone like a Ken Duke or something, but I think the Bassmasters did that at one time. They've shifted their point system to the same way we're talking about, where it's like a 1 point.
Right.
But I think it would be unique to do that. I thought that at one point they used to give you extra points if you were leading a day as well.
Maybe it does seem like they did that. It does seem like they did that. Yeah, I do. I think I remember hearing that. Yeah, but I feel like it should be. I mean, I think. No discredit to Keith Carson. He obviously earned what he earned on the NPFL. But I believe, what did you finish in Angler of the Year? Third or fourth, something like that?
I finished fourth, yeah.
Fourth. So, and there was guys that finished ahead of you in Angler of the Year that didn't have any wins. And when you win two events, and then it wasn't like you won 2 events and you were last in the other ones. Like you won 2 events and backed it up with quality finishes. I mean, even 32nd out of 100 boats is not terrible. There should be more value on that win. Like a guy that doesn't win one shouldn't be ahead of a dude that won 2 and never finished below 30th. Like it just doesn't seem.
I think it was Bryant Smith that finished above me in third. And if I'm in Bryant's shoes and I hear you say that, I'd say, well, you know what? John should have caught him better.
Right.
I think he had like 3 or 4 top 10s in a row towards the end of the season. So,
no doubt. No, he did, and he was rolling, and he fished amazing. Maybe you want to. So it just seems like from the outside looking in, those wins can be so hard to come by that they should be more valuable to me. I guess I'm not alone in that corner on this conversation.
No, it was a good year, man. It was a really good year. I have zero regrets about my finishing fourth. There's a couple days. And like in Pickwick, the third day, I was in like 8th place going into the final day, and I did the math, and I was like, I can't win. I can't catch up to Brandon Perkins and win this thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try for 2nd place. Well, if I'd just gone out there and putted with what I knew to putt, I would have got a top 10, and that potentially would have been what got me to top. Seriously, that would have won the Angler of the Year.
Really?
But
yeah.
instead, something triggered me and said, I'm going for second. And I remember the guy, the cameraman, interviewed me. He's like, what are you thinking right now? You thinking about points? And I said, no. I'm thinking that $30,000 for second place sounds a lot better than $9,000 for 11.
Yeah.
And I fished that way, and I came in with one fish, and it was so I dropped from like 8th place to 31st or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that
that definitely would have. That would have made a big difference.
That was it. That was the one. And that actually, in hindsight, after it happened, I was like, what was I thinking? I was like, I know what I was thinking. I mean, I just won 2 events, and the money was tasting good, and I went after the money instead of the points. Now, like in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd played a little bit safer, but if you play it safe all the time, you don't connect the way you need to as well. So.
Well, man, one thing I want to throw out there, we're getting some great comments coming in. We've got William Clark giving you some love in the comments, and he's plowing snow in Kentucky right now. So we got guys from all across the country. We even had a guy earlier. He's watching in Australia, John. This is worldwide. This is like prestige worldwide, man. We got the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. You know what I mean? So NPFL. So talk to me about last year on the NPFL. Because that was a brand new tour last year. Tell me about the experience fishing with that organization.
Oh man, the experience was beyond ridiculous. It was amazing. Anybody that was around it will tell you the exact same thing. The care that the ownership took to just build and give. I mean, my fishing career, it won't be the same just in 1 year. It's just been really, really, really good for me. They were amazing. We did have an unfortunate thing happen at the end where we had some.
Clarify that, because there's some listening that probably don't know. So clarify that.
So we had a season. The season had a championship scheduled. The top, I forgot how many of us, 25, were to fish the championship.
It was going to be the NPFL version of the Classic, so to speak.
Correct. And the ownership had a investor back out at the last minute, and they hadn't picked up sponsorship money to be able to fund it after that fell out. So they had to pull, and they pulled away, and we didn't get our championship.
The event got canceled. But to their credit, the leadership, the ownership at NPFL was very straightforward, fell on their sword. When things fell through, they owned up to it, did the best they could to do right by every angler involved, and they didn't run and hide from it or try and pretend like it didn't happen or anything like that.
No, I think there was a week or two of frustration, confusion, not knowing how to react to it, that, some may point fingers at them about, but, being businessmen, being entrepreneurs, knowing the risks they've taken, no one in the industry has really stepped up to put their money out there, to put their skin in the game, to back the NPFL. These guys have put everything that they have on the line for it. I walked away smelling like a rose. You know what I mean? Like, after the year one's over, after those 2 weeks of, hey, we could lose everything, they put their heads together, they found another investor, and they started to rebuild. They contacted everybody, and the top 25 guys got paid. They divided the money up, and they sent $10,000 to.
That's what I mean. They took care of the guys. At the end of the day, we didn't get to have the Derby. We didn't get to have the big, opportunity to go fish for the money and all that. But they split it up equally amongst the qualified guys and took care of the guys. And that speaks volumes about their quality of character, because at that point there was nothing said they had to do that. It was all bets are off. We were in uncharted territory at that point. One thing I also want to give NPFL credit for, there has been many, well, maybe not many, there's been a few come and go on this, we're going to make another professional fishing league. I think a lot of guys will remember PAA. This bass fishing world at the end of the day is pretty small market. And it's not easy to put on a show. I mean, these guys are doing live streaming coverage. You've got commentators with Luke and Fat Cat and all them guys. And putting on a top-level event like that, there's been other trails that have tried to do similar things and have failed multiple times. NPFL came out in the first year and did it like the big boys do it, and did a really dang good job. It was really impressive, the show that they put on and the carpet they rolled out for you guys. And so kudos to them for doing something that really hasn't been successful in the past. And And for the most part, by all accounts, man, it's very, very, very successful in its first year. And then now, just because we had the little hiccup at the end, that ain't going to stop us. We're going to 2022 NPFL. What we got coming? Tell the folks what we got coming up that don't know about NPFL, man. Y'all got it going on in 22.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to pull up the schedule on my phone because I don't have it memorized, but I'll read out. And here's one unique thing about the NPFL, and while I'm looking it up, I want to say this one thing. The NPFL, there was never a question in my mind about supporting these guys after what they gave, the opportunity they gave me in year one. So coming back in year two and supporting them is all about returning what they gave me the opportunity to do, man. And I can't express to you the amount of growth as a professional fisherman that 1 year, the platform that they created. You said they did it like the big boys. In some ways, they did it better than the big boys.
Yeah.
With the 10 live stream cameras every single day.
Yep.
They
invested more. They invested more, put more out there. You're right.
And it's caused the others to take it, pay attention to step up their game a little bit more as well, which is good. That's what competition's good in that sense. For everybody. But I got a schedule put up in front of me, and here's one unique thing that's different. A couple of unique things that's different about the NPFL versus FLW or bass. One is we fish 3 days. That's not different. What's different about it is that we don't have a cut. So everybody fishes all 3 days.
Okay.
There's not a 50-man cut after day two. So you could be in second place going into the final day, and boat 110 is right there next to you still. So
interesting.
There's good and some bad feedback about that. I went into it with a good mindset at the beginning of the year. I thought to myself, what, if I bomb day 1 and 2 and day 3, I'm going to intentionally go out and I'm going to fish new water with new lures that I'm going to do something, and I'm going to learn how to be a better tournament angler. That was the mindset I had. Now, I never had to face that situation last year. But that's kind of, so by the end of the year, I was kind of like, I kind of wish there was a cut. These guys are kind of in my way. But that's just, I was being a little selfish. But so that's one unique thing. Another unique thing that we have is we have live trailered weigh-ins at every single tournament. So the fish care is really important. We have a 1 pound penalty per dead fish. It is extremely painful to weigh in a dead fish.
No doubt.
To get a whole pound. So
especially at that level where a pound can cost you thousands of dollars.
Thousands. And ain't with your money and points and everything. So, we come in, we check in, the fish are still on our boat, we're still responsible for them. We trailer in, so it's all coordinated. The first event, we sat on the concrete a little bit too long with the boat, so they spread out our weigh-in, our flights in 30 minutes from each other, so that way the boats could get in and the fish not be in the heat as much. So, we're able to come in, expose our boats, our wraps, our truck wraps, all that. And then the fish are never bagged. They're bagged. They go straight from the live well to the front trailer to they're weighed in, and then from there they go to the release trailer immediately. So,
oh wow, okay.
So the fish care is really important. So that's one unique thing. And then the third thing that it comes to my mind when I read the schedule off to you is that we fish a longer season, more spread out, and are more conditions and are different lakes than the other trails. So in some ways, you could say that you have to be a more well-rounded angler to compete on the NPFL.
Yeah,
you should become.
Creates more versatility. You have to be more versatile. Yeah.
It's more like an open schedule. Like if you were to fish all 9 open, you start February and you end up in October. So our first event is the 20th of February. It's on Lake Cumberland in Kentucky.
Woo!
So,
that's gonna be a cold dude, Jack.
yeah, I agree, and I'm excited about it to be cold because I think that I show up and it's cold and I've already got 50% of the anglers have already quit. I've already got them beat. So that's how I look at that situation.
Well, and being a more of a live sonar guy, man, the colder the water is, sometimes the better they'll sit still for you on that live sonar.
Sometimes.
Yes,
Sometimes
sir.
for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yep. The second event is actually Lake Hartwell in South Carolina on April 17th.
Okay.
So
good break there, yeah.
Yeah, big break. The third event is on Watts Bar in Tennessee, May 22nd. The fourth event is now we do a North Swing this year. So we go to Saginaw Bay, Michigan, June 26th.
Ooh, spawn and smallmouth. Come on.
Then we go to Sandusky Bay, Ohio, in August 28th. So
Dude, I don't even know
August
what is that? Sandusky Bay in Ohio.
So they say that some of the Saginaw Bay and Sandusky Bay are some of the two best kept secrets up there.
Okay.
They got a lot of big fish. Yeah.
Okay.
So, before they started the NPFL pre-COVID, okay? So pre-COVID, the plan was they were going to draw a triangle, basically centralized USA. And then if you take that triangle, 1 year they were going to have a northern swing, 2 events were going to be north of the triangle, 4 events in the triangle. The next year, 2 events in the south, and 4 events in the triangle. And then the third year, 2 events west, and the 4 events in the triangle.
Okay.
Just rotate the triangle.
COVID definitely, got in the way of all that for scheduling purposes and all that.
COVID has made logistics of everything difficult. We'll just say that.
Yeah. So we got. I mean, this is a lot of traveling for me, man. This is the closest event I got, and I've never been to any of these lakes, by the way. So the final event is October 30th, so like November 1st event. Is on the Kissimmee chain in Florida.
Oh wow,
So
a fall event in Florida. Okay.
Yeah. And so that was unique because last year, the third event, the second event that I won, we were actually on the Harris chain in the summertime.
Right.
And there's not been a lot of events, fished in the summertime on.
Now I think Major League Fishing did a heavy hitters down there in the summer, kind of summer, like late May or June. But yeah, we don't go to Florida in summer. We go to Florida in February. That's what they do.
Yep.
Huh. Well, that's it.
Yeah, so
It's very interesting.
That is our full schedule.
The schedule definitely has some things to offer us as far as fans and viewers that we don't get to see. I mean, we don't. Man, like I said, y'all got a place that honestly, Sandusky Bay. Like I don't know that place at all.
I'm not super familiar with Watts Bar either.
And then the fact that we're going to go up to smallmouth territory when they should be spawning, that's something we don't always see. I mean, every once in a while they'll have a June or July tournament where they're still spawning up there. But I mean, you guys should be in the meat of the spawn in that Saginaw Bay tournament in June. That's going to be interesting. Watts Bar in May. We haven't seen a Watts Bar tournament on a high level in a long time. So kudos to NPFL, man. Very cool schedule of it's not just, hey, we're going to Guntersville. Hey, we're going to Fork and Rayburn. Like, it's some different stuff.
Correct. And they're pretty adamant about continuing that pattern as long as they can.
Yeah.
You talk to them, and that's one of their goals.
That's
last
good.
year, we went down to help me out there in your backyard, not Pines. We went to
Y'all went to that one up by Texarkana. Right Patman. Right Patman. Yeah.
Yeah, we were on the right Patman last year. Now, it was an amazing event for us, but unfortunately, while we're over there only catching 25-pound bags, Livesey is catching 30-pound bags on a spook on Fork. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, 42 pounds on the last day. It was pretty special.
42. Yeah. So, not many people knew what was going on at Wright Patman when that was going on.
Well, y'all need to put something in somebody's ear. And I know there's so much logistics to go into where you can have these kind of events, but we need to start having some on Lake of the Pines. Speaking of that one, because dude, that is probably the most underrated lake anywhere. Like that lake it's not as good for big fish as Fork, but it ain't behind by very much, and it's got numbers of fish. Like it's an incredible fishery that doesn't have near the reputation of Rayburn or Toledo or Fork or, Ivy at this point or Falcon or Amistad. It doesn't have the reputation. But, dude, I will take Lake of the Pines over all those with one exception, and that's Fork for big bass. And maybe Ivy right now this year for big bass. But other than that, I mean, Pines is unbelievable. And nobody ever goes there.
Right. Now, it became known in our little circle because of how close it was to Wright Patman. There's a lot of guys that stopped in and practice on Pines. And
it's real good.
Catching 8-pounders.
It's real good.
Of course, the crappie world. I'm connected to the crappie world, so
yep.
The crappie world loves Pines too.
They do. You'll see the Armada down there this time of year by the dam, no doubt. No doubt, man. It's a special place. Like it's one of them places. You get the weekly, I think Rita Cox Trail runs out there a lot. And you get the Saturday morning derbies get to going out there about right now or here pretty soon, and they'll go through the spring. And, like you better catch 30, dude. Like when it gets to going, like if they're biting out there, if you don't catch 30, you're not even close. and a lot of times it's 35. It's an unbelievable fishery, man. It really is. It's very underrated. Very underrated. So, well, man, that kind of wraps up our list of stuff, dude. We had a lot of questions for you. You took a lot of time with us. I can't thank you enough. I know me and you have had a couple of text discussions. For the folks watching, me and John, we're going to try our best with schedules to link up and get in the boat together and do some stuff for you guys. But even without that, we said it in the beginning before John got on the phone, but once we're off the live, his new YouTube channel will be linked in the description. So y'all go check out and subscribe and turn on the notifications for the hookup with Soukup. John, I cannot thank you enough. Go love on that new baby tomorrow. Last couple weeks, you're home before you head out on the trail, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
All right, brother. You have a great night.
Have a good night.
Man, that was a great discussion.
Yes, that was.
I know I said it earlier, but if you were watching that, you need to start at about the 10-minute mark, and there's about 30 or 40 minutes of live sonar discussion that I don't believe has been put out anywhere.
That's what, I'm glad that you had everything pretty teed up, because I was kind of sitting over here just soaking it up.
Yeah.
Because
Well, you're a guy that doesn't have hardly any experience with live sonar.
Correct.
So that's great information for you.
Correct.
But there was some advanced stuff. Like there was some stuff like that, the feather sweep.
Yeah.
Like sweeping around. And then I'll just kind of go and I'll sit it still and I'll kind of slowly, but I don't need to do that. What he said makes more sense. You just do little sweeps, quick, hard return. And you center in on that hard return. Dude, that is a top level tip that nobody's ever mentioned anywhere.
that's right.
And there were several things like that he discussed that were just so good. So good.
I like how he doesn't use directional, like left or right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, closer or further.
closer or further.
Yeah, because that's what it is.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Yeah, yeah. It was a great discussion. I mean, just an unbelievably great discussion. So.
that's literally top secret guide stuff.
Yeah,
Literally.
yeah, big time.
Yeah, from a guy that's won a lot of money.
Yeah,
doing it.
And I'm sure there was plenty of questions I didn't get to. There was so much I wanted to talk to John about, so I hope you guys didn't mind. I tried to take time to answer some questions in the middle there, but I know there was probably a lot more in the chat, on up the chat where I didn't catch them, and I apologize for that.
One question I have is, okay, so I'm familiar with like sonar ping. Does the Livescope have a ping as well?
Louder.
It is louder.
It's a
I
more
figured
powerful
it would
ping.
be because
Yeah.
it's a more constant.
It's an even more powerful ping than anything you've ever heard.
right.
Like if I went and turned on them gadgets, you'd hear it from here.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
like the sonar ping and a quiet. Like if we were just
Yeah.
stop moving on a regular sonar ping, we might hear a little tick 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 tick
Right.
tick from here.
Right.
If I turn that active target on from right here, and it'd be like tick 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 tick. It's
Well,
loud,
because
dude. It sounds like it's banging on the garage door. It's crazy
Any
loud.
experience that I've had with live sonar to this point has been on super windy days where
Yeah.
just. And I'm not
Oh,
really
you
paying
can hear it down
attention
in the like on a calm day,
Yeah.
and nobody around you. You can hear it in the water.
Yeah.
Like when you're standing up on the deck of your boat and it's underneath the surface of the water, you can still hear it going tick, 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 tick. It's
Yeah.
crazy loud. And 360 ain't. So when you've got a 360 and a sonar and a live sonar, when you've got all that going, dude, you're making.
drum solo.
Who needs a hydro wave, dude? We already got it going.
Yeah, drum solo. Got it. Well, because I've always been used to hearing the ping whenever I'm scanning, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was just curious how different it was.
No, it's loud. That live sonar one's definitely noticeable. Louder. Chris, you didn't even get to participate tonight. So.
I didn't have to do much. I didn't have to do much.
Is there anything you want to talk about, Chris?
No, I mean I gotta go make some notes in my truck.
You go
Some of the stuff
make
I learned.
notes and take notes, man. Well, guys, thank you guys for joining us as always, man. Get that music queued up there, Chris. We appreciate you watching. Please do go subscribe and follow John. Obviously, a wealth of fishing information to learn from there, and that's what we like to do on this channel. He's gonna do it on a whole different level over there, man. We appreciate y'all watching as always. Get the Whiskey Myers going. Right on time, baby. The cup's empty. If I'm being honest, I had to manage that. We talked so long, I had to manage that because we had the real brown water in the cup tonight, man. Thank you guys as always. Yes, sir. Hey, we appreciate all of y'all as always. Like, subscribe, follow, do all those things. Sharing is caring. We need to hit that up. Chris, Do that thing you do.
Peace out and peace on you.